What's up, Dragon Brood? With the release of Avatar, I'm sure you're wondering what cards have been overperforming, which ones have been underperforming. We're going to have two videos to solve that for you. For now, we're going to tell you the ones that have been overperforming, and you're probably safe to craft these, or just go out and buy the singles if you want to. Also, this video is brought to you by Agro University, my merch. You should check it out, link below. Right, the first card we're going to start with is Firebending Ascension. This card has actually turned out to probably be the best of the Ascensions. At worst, it's the second best. But this card just allows a lot of silly things to happen. The fact that it actually makes a creature is also very good because you're just playing 2 mana to get a 2/2, which is fine. But it also comes with an ability that has Firebending, and then you also get to trigger all your other things. And you can trigger a bunch of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with Firebending, which makes this card very silly. So yeah, this card has been fantastic in so many different decks. I expect we're going to see a lot of this early in the season. Now, whether it maintains that, I guess, presence as the season goes on, who knows? But at least in the early goings, this card is actually likely to be seen a lot. So keep your eye out for it. Right, next up we have Ren and Shaw. It's a 5 mana 4/4 that makes a copy of itself. Both copies have Firebending too, and then if you have, well, I say to get the copy, you need to have 3 dragons or lessons in your graveyard. Then you can also pay 4 and all your dragons get +2/+0. Now this card's actually pretty solid. It's turned out to be very good. Obviously, if you're playing the lesson deck, then this is going to be the top end of your deck. Well, I guess technically you're probably going to play like 1 Iroh or something, but this is going to be one of your main upper end spells. Also, don't forget that if you're just playing a dragon deck, this card is totally fine, just to pay 5 mana and get 2 4/4s. Some of the best value you're going to be able to get for a singular creature. And if you're playing a dragon deck and you're worried about sweepers, this card's actually pretty safe. But I will say, we mostly saw this in the Lessons deck, and even talking to other creators, they actually loved this card too when they actually got to cast it. So far, this one holds up. I'll give it this though. I don't think you need a full set of 4. I think this is one you can get away with having 2 copies in your deck, 3 at most. United Front, not to be confused with United Battlefront, because that's a whole different card. But United Front, X white white, it's a sorcery. You can create X/1/1 ally creature tokens, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Now, this card is good for a few reasons. The obvious one is this: let's just make a bunch of allies and my team gets bigger. But in a pinch, you can also just use this to put a +1/+1 on your team, right? You need to put counters on things, or you have things that trigger because stuff gets counters. This is also fine in those decks, right? You can do this for 3 or 4 mana and then still get the +1/+1 and you get all the 2/2s. You can hold this, and then after a sweeper, you're like, fine, I'll pay 5 mana, 6 mana, have 4 2/2s. You know, that's still enough to probably put your opponent within range of lethal. So why not? Yeah, this card actually showed up in several decks, not just allied decks. There's some token decks that were playing it, +1/+1 counter decks that are playing it, and they all performed pretty well with this card. Now, again, I don't think you need to load your deck with 4 of these, but 2 is probably fine. 3 will take care of you in most cases. So yeah, really good, useful card. I think it's just going to depend on what way you have to ramp the mana or how important those +1/+1 counters are. But overall, just a great way to make tokens and counters all in one package, which is great. Well, this next card reminds me, if y'all haven't watched our overrated, underrated cards video from Avatar, you should probably check those out. But Baifong's Bounty Hunter, 2 black, green, so a 4 mana, 4/4 human mercenary. But whenever a non-land creature you control dies, you earthbend X, where X is that creature's power. Now, why is this card good? For a lot of reasons, actually. The first being that it is just a 4/4 for 4, but that actually is also some of the drawback, because the black and green decks have quite a few things that are good in the 4 mana slot. That being said, this card kind of replaces itself when it dies, right? You give up a 4/4 to get a 4/4, so you don't really lose anything. Also notice that it doesn't say non-token creature, so if you have a bunch of 1/1s and 2/2 tokens, well, if those die, they can just go ahead and jump onto a land. Or you can combo this, which is the most popular way we've seen it, used with either various combinations of earthbending things where you want to sacrifice the land and then get a trigger, or just combo out being able to sack something else, get something back on the battlefield, or something that generates a token, sack the token, put it on the land, sack the land, and so on and so on. So Lots of stuff you can do with this card. This card's also very good just in general to have wrath protection or sweeper protection, if you will, because you have a situation where, let's say you have a 2/2, a 3/3 in this guy, right? A 4/4. Well, if your opponent sweeps the board, they just jump on the lands and you still have a 2/2, a 3/3, and a 4/4, right? Hard to be upset at this card. Now, again, the 4 mana slot's pretty full in a lot of the Golgari builds, so you kind of have to decide what you want your deck to be doing. But if you can take advantage of Earthbending or Sacrifice effects or anything of that nature, this card's worth considering. Firelord Azula. Yeah, this one's fun. This one's 1 blue, black, red for a 4/4 human noble. Has Firebending 2. And then whenever you cast a spell while this card is attacking, you copy that spell and you can choose new targets for the copies. Now, a really interesting thing here is I don't think in the preseason a lot of folks really understood what you could do with this card. And as more people played with it, you kind of saw it throughout the day with the streamer event and the subsequent videos of people talking about their gameplay that we kind of understand what you can do with this now. Now, the Firebending 2 is actually really important here because it gives you extra mana to just do all the other things. Whether that's cast removal spells, burn spells, draw cards, whatever, you're getting 2 copies of everything while this card is attacking. And in some cases, you already have 4 mana, so you're attacking and now you have access to 6, theoretically. You can cast 2 or 3 spells and all of those get copied. It's not like the first time you do it or whatever, it's just whenever you cast a spell as long as this is attacking. So this becomes a type of card that your opponent almost has to kill on sight or else it just gets out of hand. But yeah, sweet card. I think it went under the radar quite a bit. But of the Azulas in the set, this is the one you probably want to be playing with. Yeah, let's talk about Wan Chi Tong Librarian. X blue blue for a 1/1 bird spirit with flash, flying, and vigilance. A lot of stuff on here. But when it enters, you put X +1/+1 counters on it, then you draw half X cards rounded down. So if this is on 3, you would draw 1 because that's half rounded down. If it's 4, you get 2. You kind of understand. And then whenever an opponent searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on Wan Chi Tong and draw a card. So just as a bonus feature, if your opponent at any point goes looking for a land with, let's say, one of the fetch lands in the landfall deck, then great. You just get to put a counter on it and get a card just because. But also if they search for anything to put something on top of their library or any of the other ways that they may be searching for cards. Now, that's not even really that important. That's kind of like the bonus ability on here. The fact that you can ramp up very easily in standard right now, and you can just play this for, say, 4, right? So it's 6 mana. You flash in, you get this 5/5 blocker to start with, right? If that's what you're looking for. And then you also get 2 cards on top of it. That's a lot that this card does. And then, of course, it combos with a bunch of other neat cards you can play, like Drunith and some other stuff. Like, this card, it's good. It's good. I will say this, I don't think any deck needs to be playing 4 of these, even if you are ramping up and doing some type of Simic pile of stuff. Realistically, like, 2 is probably the correct number, but the card's still really good, and it turned out to be as good as we all thought it was going to be. All right, the next one up here is Airbender Ascension. This is one that, again, kind of coming back to Firebending or Firebender Ascension. Either one is 1 and 1A. You can take your pick. But this is probably the second best overall. I'll say this, though. This card is actually good because for 2 mana, you get to just slow your opponent down by just bouncing a thing if you want to. But you can also, like, airbend one of your own things, right? And get value that way. And then later on, if you have anything that has enter the battlefield triggers, well, then you get all of those as well. Like, this is actually a really useful card. And it fits a theme of deck that people already enjoy playing with the blink effects and everything else. Now, the only thing I would say about this card is you do kind of need to build around it a little bit more than you do the Firebending Ascension, where with Firebender Ascension, it kind of just triggers anything that has an attack trigger that makes something happen. This, while it does trigger anytime something enters the battlefield, which is super easy. Also notice this also doesn't say non-token, so just everything triggers this. But you kind of still need stuff that has enter the battlefield abilities, or it's not really worth blinking stuff in and out. You could occasionally use it to maybe reset some counters on a thing or something like that if you need to. But realistically, you're kind of using those ETB triggers. But the card is really good. And when you're playing it in different types of, if you want to call them tempo decks, with this and the number one card we're going to talk about here in a little bit, like, you can just keep your opponent from ever getting a foothold in the game. This card is kind of annoying for your opponents, very good for you. So yeah, and this is one you probably would play 3 or 4 copies if you are going to play it. Yeah, this is a card I thought was going to be okay, but could be good. Turned out to be even better than I anticipated, and that's Momo Friendly Flyer. It's a 1 mana 1/1 with Lemur Bat Ally, so it's checking a few boxes. It does have flying, and then your first non-Lemur creature spell with flying that you cast during the turn costs 1 less, and then when another creature you control with flying enters, Momo gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Now, that second part of getting the +1/+1 till end of turn seems kind of trivial, but it actually does matter more than you think. But making everything cost 1 less is huge. There's so many bits of trickery you can do with this. And it doesn't just fit, say, the standard like blue-white Flyers deck. It also works in a bat deck. We saw a few of those still running around playing this, and it gave new life to an old deck type. So if you've been wanting to kind of revitalize bats, we played a version a couple days ago. I don't know, we'll try to remember to link it here. But you want to update it with this? It kind of sets the deck off a little bit. It's a sweet card, really strong, cheap. It's checking a lot of boxes. It's just good. And I'm telling you, in the Flyers deck, this card did so much work. It allows you to play multiple creatures sometimes in a turn. It allows you to play a creature and leave up mana for a counter or a bounce spell, or do trickery with different things to blink stuff out because you have the extra mana. So many things you could do with this. Like, it looks a bit kind of inconspicuous, but the card's actually really fantastic. Now, because it's a legend, do you want 4 of these? Honestly, this is one of the few rare legends that you might say, yeah, maybe you go ahead and play 4s as you increase the odds that you get it on turn 1 or 2, when you really want this card. So, one of those weird ones that you say, yeah, it's legendary, but it's probably still worth playing 4 of them. Yeah, get ready to get tired of this card. Badger Mole Cub. Because boy, this one, it's as good as we thought it was going to be. Still a bit overrated, but still damn good. And like, here's the thing. It is easy to kill, right? It's a 2 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you fire or earthbend, not firebend, obviously it's on a green card. Earthbend 1, and then every creature you have taps for mana. It's an additional green. So here's the thing. Like, I've seen people get draws where they have, like 10 mana going into turn 3. Because you got like Llanowar Elf into Cub and another Cub. And now you just have land, Llanowar Elf, plus a land you get to play. That's a ton of mana. Now, that's also Magic Christmas Land. But even with 1 Badger Mole Cub, that's still a lot of mana. The other thing is, this card was showing up in almost more decks than it needs to show up in. So I think you're going to see a lot of this in weeks 1 and 2. And it'll kind of taper off a little bit as the season goes on. But the decks that want this are going to really want it. If you're doing any type of ramp stuff, if you're doing any type of earthbending stuff, either of those decks is probably going to be safe playing this, just to get access to that extra mana. And it's a huge jump. It's not like a Llanowar Elf where you get just 1 mana ahead. Badger Mole Cub just hitting the battlefield can get you 2, 3, or even 4 mana ahead depending on what your setup already is. This card, really, really good. Kind of silly good, to be honest. But it's a pretty sweet card. I expect you're going to see a lot of it. If you're needing to play it, go ahead and craft 4 of it. The card is legit good. And oh boy, what can we not say about this card? Aang Swift Savior. It's 1 blue, white for a 2/3 human avatar ally, has flash and flying. When Aang enters, airbend up to 1 other target, creature or spell. You can waterbend for 8 if you want to flip it to the backside. That then becomes a big 5/5 with reach and trample. Whenever Aang and La attack, put a +1/+1 counter each tap creature you control. Now, I'm going to ignore the backside because that is a nice bonus. You're not too often going to flip it to the back, and some people are trying to get tricky and get it to the backside using stuff like the Cauldron and things like that. The reality is, though, this card just on its face is good. Now, remember how we were talking about Momo? Well, yeah, Aang goes in that deck too. If you're trying to get rid of a weird combat situation, this can get rid of a creature. Maybe you want to save something. This can go ahead and save a creature. Your opponent has an annoying thing and you think they might be trying to sweep the board next turn. Well, you can just leave your mana open and then counter their Day of Judgment, so you can attack for lethal the next turn. This card, I don't know why it even targets spells. I have zero idea, but the card is damn good. And it's good enough that it's almost worth saying, hey, I want to play 4 of these, because the counter spell like ability is actually pretty damn good on this card. And again, just the combat tricks of being able to bounce your own stuff or make your opponent waste spells or do things during combat and then bounce their defender. There's a bunch of different things you can do with this. The fact that it has flash while giving you the option of targeting 2 different types of cards is huge. And it's a 3 toughness, which also makes it a somewhat reasonable blocker if you want to get real tricky during combat. So yeah, this card might be the general best overall card in the set because it's so easy to go into a lot of future decks. Whereas I think some of the others we talked about, you do need to sort of build around them or have them in very specific piles of cards. Swift Savior can go into a lot of things, and I think it's going to be one of those cards that as Standard goes on, this card's still going to be playable for its entire time. Another thing I want to throw in there is that this set overall has tons of good commons and uncommons as well. Like top to bottom, the set has a lot of stuff to play with. So you're going to see a lot of shifts in Standard over the first probably 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, as people discover more in the cards in the set and how they work, because they're all doing some pretty different things than other Magic cards we've had before. So there's going to be a lot to be discovered. So expect that to happen as well. And if you haven't yet, be sure to check out our list of cards that have underperformed and that you probably want to hold off on crafting if you haven't watched that yet. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.